There's something you've been meaning to do. Maybe it's been sitting on your to-do list for 3 days, maybe 3 weeks. You've thought about starting it plenty of times. You've even opened the document. Maybe you typed a heading. Maybe you just stared at the cursor blinking at you for a few seconds before quietly closing the tab and doing literally anything else. And the weird part is, you're not lazy. You know this about yourself. You get things done. Just not that thing. Not yet. Soon. The reason that happens isn't a character flaw, it's biology. And once you understand what your brain is actually doing when you procrastinate, you'll never quite look at an avoided task the same way again. For a long time, procrastination was treated as a time management problem. The solution people always reached for was a better calendar, a stricter schedule, a new productivity app. And for most people, none of it worked. At least not for long. Because the research is pretty clear now. Procrastination isn't really about time at all. It's about emotion. When you avoid a task, you're not failing to manage your schedule. You're managing a feeling. Something about that task, the scale of it, the uncertainty of it, the fear of doing it badly, the sheer boredom of it, is producing a low-grade discomfort in your brain. And your brain, being extremely good at its job, immediately starts looking for a way to make that discomfort stop. Opening YouTube works, checking your phone works, making a cup of tea works. They all make the discomfort stop. Instantly. Reliably. Every single time. The task, on the other hand, offers nothing up front, just more discomfort, with a vague promise of relief somewhere further down the road. For your brain, that's not even a close call. Inside your skull, there are two systems that are basically in constant negotiation with each other. One is your limbic system, ancient, fast, and almost entirely focused on how you feel right now. It doesn't think in weeks or months, it thinks in the next 5 minutes. It's the part of you that reaches for snacks when you're not hungry, stays up too late watching one more episode, and finds literally anything interesting to look at the moment a task gets difficult. The other is your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning, weighing consequences, thinking about future you. It's slower, more deliberate. It's the part of you that knows you'll feel better once the work is done. The problem is that the limbic system has a head start. It processes emotion faster than the prefrontal cortex can respond. So by the time your rational brain is saying, we should really get started on this, your emotional brain has already steered you toward the nearest comfortable distraction. And it feels completely natural. It doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like you just happen to want a cup of tea. The deck is stacked. And it's been stacked since long before any of us were born. In 2018, researchers in Germany put 264 people inside MRI scanners and looked at the physical structure of their brains. They were specifically studying people who struggled to take action, people who knew what they needed to do, but consistently couldn't make themselves start. What they found was striking. The people who procrastinated most didn't just have a more active amygdala, the brain's alarm system, the part that fires when it detects something threatening or uncomfortable. They had a physically larger one. Not more stressed, not more distracted, structurally different, which suggests that for some people, the tendency to treat an unfinished task like a lurking threat isn't a habit they developed. It's wired into the architecture of how their brain processes the world. The amygdala doesn't distinguish much between a predator in the dark and an email you've been avoiding. Both register as unpleasant. Both trigger the same basic impulse: get away from this. The researchers also found that in heavy procrastinators, the connection between the amygdala and the part of the brain that regulates it was weaker. The alarm was louder, the volume knob harder to turn down. Here's where it gets a little cruel. Every time you avoid something and feel that immediate wave of relief, that's your brain logging a result. Avoided task, felt better, it takes note, it files it away. And next time that task comes up, the pull toward avoidance is slightly stronger, slightly more automatic, slightly easier to follow without even noticing you're doing it. And then the guilt arrives. That particular feeling of knowing you should be doing something and not doing it. And that guilt makes the task feel even heavier than it did before. So now you're not just avoiding a difficult email. You're avoiding a difficult email that you've already been avoiding for a week, which means failing to start it feels like confirmation of something bad about you. So you avoid it a little harder, the loop tightens, the task gets bigger in your head. The gap between where you are and where you need to be starts to feel like a canyon. And standing at the edge of a canyon is a lot more paralyzing than standing at the edge of a small ditch. The reason most productivity advice doesn't work is that it tries to fix a feelings problem with a logic solution. You don't need a better system for organizing your tasks, you need a way to make starting feel less threatening than not starting. And the smallest possible version of starting is the only thing that reliably does that, not "I'll work on this for 2 hours." Just open the document, write one sentence, reply to the first line of the email, and stop there if you want. The goal isn't to trick yourself into doing the whole thing. The goal is to shrink the task enough that your amygdala stops reading it as a threat. And once you've started, momentum tends to take care of the rest. There's also something in the research about self-compassion that surprises most people. Being harsh with yourself for procrastinating, the guilt, the frustration, the "why can't I just do this?" actually increases avoidance. It adds another layer of discomfort to the thing that was already uncomfortable. Whereas people who respond to their own procrastination with something closer to curiosity than criticism, just noting it without the spiral, tend to get back on track faster. You're not fighting laziness. You're negotiating with a very old, very fast part of your brain that's trying to protect you. The key is to make the thing it's protecting you from a little less scary. The thing sitting on your to-do list right now, the one you've been circling without landing, your brain isn't ignoring it because you're undisciplined. It's treating it like a slightly uncomfortable obstacle and waiting for you to do something that feels better first. Which you will. You always do eventually. But next time you catch yourself drifting toward the easier thing, try not to make it mean something about who you are. Your brain is doing what brains do. The only move that actually helps is making the next step so small it barely counts and then letting it count anyway. One sentence, one email, 1 minute, that's all the gap needs to close.